John R. Frederickson, who has a lot of the responsibility, and thanks for putting this shindig together today, by the way. John reminds me of a time when Aunt Ellen, already in her 90s, was living in the Legacy facility out near the Jordan River Temple, and serving as perhaps the oldest Relief Society president in the LDS Church, a position she had for a number of years. Well, she fell and broke her hip during that time, and so she was moved temporarily to a care facility in South Valley, just east of Highland Drive. John called on her one time when the Legacy Branch presidency was visiting her to ask, among other things, if, under the circumstances, perhaps she'd like to be released from her Relief Society calling. To which, as he remembers it, she answered no. John remembers that she continued to serve for a while longer, and observes that though her body no longer allows her to be anyone's primary driver these days, or do a number of things she used to do, she herself is as sharp and lucid as ever. At 95, John, a nickname occurs to me. Ellen B. Hinckley?
Becky Frederickson Butcher, she's my sister. I remember Aunt Ellen, our sister. My most cherished memories of Aunt Ellen are the sleepovers with Nola. I remember having to beg my mom to stay over. I remember Nola asking her mom if it was okay, and then Aunt Ellen readily agreed, saying, yes, it's okay, if it's okay with Aunt Dorothy. Aunt Dorothy was a tough nut to crack, but eventually she gave in. I remember feeling safe and cared for at the Bolander house. The meals were delicious. I vividly remember the turnover-type sandwiches that Aunt Ellen made with the turnover-type pan. To me, they were awesome. I remember her sewing her girls' dresses and thinking how pretty they were. Ellen's sewing machine and cabinet were just like my mom's, only it was light wood and mom's was dark. Kind of went along with Nola having blonde hair and her being nicknamed Rose Red, and me having dark hair and being nicknamed Snow White. Aunt Ellen was pretty strict, but she was very genuine. I knew she loved me and would always be there for me. She has always been an example of gracious strength and courage.
Ronald Quayle Frederickson, that's me. When I was almost 5 years old, and Darrell was 2, we lived in the Wilshire Apartments on the second floor of the building across from the old Southeast Theater in Sugar House. That's right on the side of the huge current Sugar House vacant lot. One of my earliest memories of Aunt Ellen was very soon after she and Reed were married. They arrived one morning and knocked on our apartment door, and I had this vivid image in my mind of how excited Aunt Ellen was. She was absolutely ecstatic about her brand new shiny black 39 Dodge. We all went down to the Highland Drive entrance and admired the car, and as I remember, we all got in it and went for a ride. And I'm sure she let her brother Paul, my dad, drive it. He hadn't owned a car since his 1934 Roadster, except the brief, ill-fated purchase of a Dodge sedan, which he had to sell when he lost his job at Grand Central Market. Both Paul and Ellen were always crazy about cars. Her children remember.
This is a memory from Betty Bolander. I am still pondering the memories, but one that still makes me laugh is when Nola was working at Kroll, she invited Mom down to her company Christmas party, which was held at a nice restaurant. Mom met her there, enjoyed a nice dinner and party. When it was over, she was looking for her car keys. Nola helped her search her purse while Nola's boss went to see if she had left it in her car. He returned laughing. Her keys were not only in the car, but in the ignition with the car still running. Talk about being in a hurry. There's also the story when Mom was driving to Granite Furniture in Sugar House house one day with Reed, Drew, and I in the back seat. As she came down 21st South and made the left turn, she became aware that the back door of the car was open. She hollered at Reed to close the door, and he said, "I can't." Betty fell out. I was 2 or 3 years old and was lying in the gutter on the north side of 21st South, muddy, and with a slight concussion. As Reed asked Reed what really happened, to this day he just grins when we ask him about it.
I can see Reed just grinning, just as I can see his dad just grinning. Incidentally, here is another version of that same story, and I find myself wondering if Betty fell out of the car more than once. This is a memory that Reed sent me a couple of weeks ago before he had his health problems, and we're all praying for Reed and the doctors who are attending him right now, I'm sure. Here's from Reed James Bolander. I thought about what I remember. One thing that came to my mind, close the door. Drew and I would always ride in the back with Grandma Ellen, and Mom would be yelling to me, "Close the door." You see, I always looked to roll down the window, open the door, and swing out on it. And Grandma Ellen would try to catch me and pull me back in the car. This was great fun. Another related incident, I'm sure that you all realize that Ellen was named after her mother. So when we talk about Grandma Ellen, we're talking about Ellen May Colan, who was married to David Frederickson, Grandpa Frederickson, okay? Anyway, this is great fun. Another related incident, when we lived on the hill and weren't far from our home, Mom said, "Close the door." There was a long pause as we were still moving along, and she said again, "Close the door." And I finally said, "Mom, Betty fell out back there. Do you want to stop and pick her up?" There was an abrupt stop. She ran back to pick up Betty and bring her back to the car. She wasn't hurt or even crying, as I recall. So much for swinging on doors.
This is a memory from Connie Bolander, the Queen. I remember making homemade ice cream on the back porch. We would all take turns cranking it. It seemed like a lot of work, and it seemed like it took hours. But in the end, it was worth it because it was so good. Except for the time Mom decided to put Jell-O into it. To flavor it, I guess, but it had chunks of Jell-O in it. I remember Drew getting quite a kick out of it. It was a laugh. We laughed about it for a while. Mom had pretty good attitude when things didn't go well. I had my first date with Nelson, and when he got home, he put his car in neutral because it wouldn't go into park. When we got out of the car, his car shifted and went through the garage door into Mom's new car. Nola and Sherry thought Mom fell out of bed, and they all came running out. What a surprise! Mom called Drew up, and he came over. We laughed. I didn't like tight clothes. I would come home from school with my sashes undone, buttons undone, and shoes unbuckled. So she made me clothes that were loose enough on me. She even made me a special coat that was roomy too. She took the time to make sure I was comfortable. I had often thought about that and have always appreciated her thoughtfulness.